do my first reaction video, see if this thing works. We're doing Nick at BookThinkers when he interviewed Dan Bilzerian. I never could say anything smoothly. So let's just get on with the review here.
What if your dad wasn't around that much? And what if you were getting into trouble and you were insecure and you had all this other stuff that Dan had going on? Like, would you rather your childhood where your parents were around all the time paying attention to you, not too hands-on, but like around and they loved you? Or would you rather what Dan had, which wasn't so glamorous behind the scenes? And it kind of puts things into perspective about you. You know, people toss around like trust fund and all this stuff all the time. It's like it wasn't so colorful. It wasn't so pretty in the background once you actually read his story.
Well, and another thing is, like, I would argue that having loving parents in a 36,000 square foot house versus having loving parents in an 8,000 square foot house, you'd be much better off to be in the 8,000 square foot house with, you know, a Jeep.
First of all, must be nice to have parents. Second of all, you know he's got high standards when the 8,000 square foot house is his small house.
And whatever.
Piece of shit.
Ferrari in the big house, because what people don't understand is when you set that bar up there, and this is what I talked about earlier, like you get used to everything within 6 months max. And so, you know, like they talk about people that won the lottery and somebody that got their arm fucking ripped off a year later, like their happiness is equal, if not, you know, better for the person that got.
Yeah, it's like Anna Lemke talks about the dopamine baseline, right? If you have a super high standard or a super high standard of living, I guess, like how much higher do you have to go to get that next dopamine hit? It's why addicts have to smoke or take more and more drugs because their standards are so high now that the little things don't get their dopamine brewing.
Got their arm amputated because they went to the bottom and they only could go up, and the person that won the lottery literally went to the top and could only go down. So it's kind of like this like perceived you know, expectation of like what their life is, what normal is, right? And so if you set that bar of like what normal is at the top, then, you know, I've said this in many interviews that like only the best things satisfy you and nothing really like makes you that happy because you're used to all the nicest shit. So I think that
hard to feel sorry for you, but I get what you're saying, you know? But look at that beard. Wouldn't it be nice to have a beard like that? I can't even get mine to connect to my anything, really.
Kids that grow up with everything are actually at a severe disadvantage, and people, they just don't understand it because they live through their lens and like.
Yeah, because all the poor kids are screaming right now, fuck you, Dan, you don't understand, yada, yada, yada. But let me ask you this. Who doesn't want to be, like, proud of the progress they've made? Like, you don't want no handouts. It might seem like it's easy, or like that's what you want. But once you get those things, you're like, oh, well, I didn't really do it. There's no pride. There's no, like, self-respect because you don't have a chance to earn any respect by being self-made.
Like, to them, they're like, oh, my God, well, that would be amazing. It's like, yeah, that would be amazing for, like, 6 months or 8 months or whatever, and then you'd be fucking used to it, just like you'd be used to anything else. The difference is when you leave that 36,000 square foot house to go live in the fucking, you know, barracks in the military with 80 people on the size of your fucking basketball court, it's exponentially more shitty than if you fucking came from the streets and now you actually have a roof over your head. So everything's perspective. And if you fuck up your perspective early, then it's like you pay for that later. And you pay for that later because now you're like comparing it to like how, you know, your house was or all this stuff. And so by like having the best stuff early, you're not doing yourself any favors, you know? And so,
yeah.
Why do you think some of the richest people and the people that you would say had the easiest life commit suicide? Because they're searching for meaning. I think humans by nature are just striving mechanisms. We have to strive towards something, or we just call it a day.
Yeah, I think I had a really shitty childhood. It's funny because a lot of people are like, oh, you know, I wish I could go back and be a kid. I was like, I would never want to be a fucking kid. I'd probably be in jail, honestly. Like, if I had my mentality as a kid, like, everybody's telling you what to do. You fucking have no freedom. It's like, that would literally be like probably worse than being in jail now. And so I would never want to go back to being a kid. I didn't really do anything with my parents. You know, it's like, I don't know. I did not
Look at the camera, Dan.
enjoy it at all.
Look up.
But
Yeah,
that shaped a lot of what I did later too. So I can't look back and be like, oh, it was the worst thing that happened, because look where I'm now.
Yeah, and you talked about your dad sort of paying you for everything, right? Like you get up on the water skis, he pays you. You wouldn't get out of bed at some point unless there was money involved with it. So I think that's very damaging for a young mind. And there's probably an interesting thing that happens, which is that a small percentage of people, you're the example, take that bar and they exceed it because, okay, only money motivates me. I'm going to go make a ton of money in college playing poker. And then most people say, wow, the bar is so high and they can't live up to the expectation. They don't have the tools to make the money or whatever the case is when they're on their own, and they crash and they burn. So yeah, you're right. I think growing up rich is probably a disadvantage, especially if you're incentivized by money. But
show me 100 trust fund kids, and I'll show you fucking at least 90 of them that are fucking addicted to drugs, that are miserable, that haven't fucking done jack shit on their own. You know what I mean? So it's like, I started with a big handicap, and
Man, it sounds weird hearing him say that. I started with a big handicap. I respect Dan for the ability to be himself. Like, this guy's authentically himself. And he doesn't need approval. That's kind of like something we all can respect. I know a lot of people hate on this guy, but I mean, he's a human and he's authentic. So what else can you ask for? And some of these keyboard warriors hiding behind the keyboard talking shit. Just wishing that they could be a little bit more authentic like Dan. Come on. Haters are going to hate, right? If you don't have any haters, you're probably living a pretty little life, maybe. I don't know. Think about it.
And, not because of the trust fund, but just because of the, the lifestyle that I grew up in, and, and how I was raised, and, just like the lack of, relatability, and like, if I was to work at a fucking, shitty job, then going in the military, that would have been easier because I'd be used to doing something I didn't want to do. But when you just get to do whatever the fuck you want to do all the time, it's kind of like then those other things become, relatively shittier because of that. So I think I had probably every disadvantage growing up because I didn't have money. Like when I was in the military, I was living on the 800, 900 bucks a month I was getting. I didn't get any support. It's not like I had a bunch of money in the bank that I could use later. So it's like I got used to nice shit, and then I had no fucking money or nice shit. And it's like, that's way worse. Show me a fucking rich guy that became poor, and I'll show you a miserable motherfucker. Show me.
But I don't think you can replace the camaraderie of that situation, which is probably better than all the riches and all the comfort. It's just looking over at your boys suffering together. All right, I just want to put this reaction video out here. I like Nick. Look at this. Look at this. This all-American Mr. Perfect. Must be nice. All right, guys. We'll see you next time. I'm going to do some more of these. I'm not sure who or what or when, but Nick was the first one. So, adios.